Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? I just finished another book that will land solidly on my best of 2025 list. It is called Not Stolen by Jeff Finn Paul. Let's get into it. If you grew up in the 90s and you remember what things were like before every aspect of our culture had to be dominated by discussions about what race owes what reparation to who based on whatever happened 239 years ago, you remember a time when Americans were just Americans. Yes, there were discussions about things that had happened in the past, but it didn't dominate every aspect. It didn't have everybody walking on eggshells. People could just be friends. People could just do things. It was cool. It was good. It was nice. Late 2000s, I'm going to put this firmly around the time that Obama was running for president, and then all of a sudden there were big organizations that constantly wanted to push the race angle, and I was like, wait, why are we doing this? Like, this is not a mainstream thing. People don't generally care about this anymore. Sure, you're going to find racists everywhere in some corner, in some pocket, but like this is not who we are on the whole as a nation. But around every corner there was this push from media and from academia to say, no, you need to talk about this, you need to think about this, this needs to be the core of your worldview and your approach to interactions with other people. Several derivations of this phenomenon later, we get 2020, and then the BLM stuff happens, and the media picks up the George Floyd story and runs with it, and shadowy puppet masters pulling strings in the corners mobilize their troops of illiterates who start tearing down more statues and defacing images of the founding fathers and telling bigger and bigger whoppers about the history of America. And now I'm realizing that I've spent the majority of my life, and especially of my adult years, in a world where this feels like this is constantly the argument that there are powerful forces that are extremely interested in forcing you to think that America is bad and has always been bad, and especially if you're white, it's bad. And here's what you owe to every person that you've ever wronged just by dint of your skin color. And I thought, I seem to recall, at least this is what the narrative was when I was 8 years old, that we had a big conflict in the history of America over people who thought that it was okay to treat others differently based on the colors of their skin. And the takeaway of that was we shouldn't do this. And now they want to codify it just by swapping the tiles around and saying, well, if you're this, you have to feel bad and for that. And if you're that, then you have to, like, here's what you're owed and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I've never been a player in that game. I've never wanted a piece of that action. But it is a conflict that even if you are not interested in it, it has been increasingly interested in you. Graham, why the long preamble? Well, 6 years back, a woman named Nicole Hannah Jones got a huge grant from some shady organization and a lot of backing and a lot of hype from the New York Times and from NPR to put out a completely bogus piece of racist histrionics called the 1619 Project. And she did this very specifically to jump the gun ahead of the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower's arrival in Massachusetts, which somebody here celebrated, even if the mainstream didn't. And she started peddling this narrative of that was when America began, because that's when slavery began in America, and bring on the histrionics, America is bad, America's always been bad, from the very first founding of it, it has always been bad, and racist, 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 racist. I knew that this was wrong. I also knew that if I were to sit down and refute every single point that she wrote in the 1619 Project, I would have to read a lot of books that I didn't have time to read in print with everything else that I had going on in life. And so I was frustrated that even friends of mine were falling victim to this, I won't say false narrative, I will say outright lie. But I couldn't make them understand that what they were consuming was wrong. Especially not without violating my Gary Paulson principle that I've said about, whether or not you think somebody is wrong about something, if you badger them about it, will it work? If it won't, what's the point? And as much as I like to be pithy about this next point that I'm going to make, I have lost friends over this. And I want to be pithy and say that, well, if you lose a friend over politics, they were never really your friend. But unfortunately, that is not true. And I've had people unfriend me because I wouldn't buy into this narrative. I say unfriend, but I don't just mean online. Like, people would just stop talking to me because there were lies about the history and the foundation and the essence of this country that I was unwilling to accept in the names of having peace with certain people. I don't like cutting people out of my life, but I will not lie to keep somebody around, especially about something that I know is wrong. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. This is where Jeff Finn Paul comes into the equation with this book, Not Stolen. A properly contextualized, detailed, and honest examination of the formation of America and the different peoples that have then merged to become the American people, including examinations of several different Amerindian tribes that were here before the Europeans showed up, how they interacted with those different European nations, and how they have endured until today, and just all of it. This is a 400-page book that would be very difficult to summarize in any meaningful way beyond saying that this is the repudiation of all of the bad faith race arguments and histrionics that you have heard about America, probably in your lifetime, but especially since Nicole Hannah-Jones started selling that lie for millions of dollars. I read a book called 1620 by Peter Woods, I believe is the name of the author, and he wrote that book as a direct repudiation of the 1619 Project in the context of 1620 being the more significant year for the foundation of America, because that was when the Mayflower Pilgrims arrived, the Pilgrim Fathers. Jeff Finn Paul takes a much broader approach to this issue. It is thorough, it is fair, it is honest, it is challenging, and he even takes shots at other historians that I have read and that I have admired, but he doesn't take shots at them personally. He picks apart the flaws in their work and, again, like, contextualizes everything in a way that is easy to digest, easy to understand, and will withstand the hard scrutiny of an earnest academic. The conclusion of the book is probably the most meaningful because after explaining all of the facts and the details, the names and dates of it all, he sums up how we got here, namely that we ceased to have an honest academia. We don't have people that treat history as a science. We have people that treat history as a series of narratives wherein truth can be democratized, and if you have enough people that agree with it, that's what makes it reality. That is not the case. History is far blunter than that. You cannot break it, you cannot change it, you can only break yourself against it. It has already happened, it is there, and you do yourself and nobody else any favors by slamming yourself against it and trying to make it into something that it never was. Were there things in this book that I wish were different about American history? Absolutely. And he highlights those things fearlessly. But if I was going to have to pick apart 20 books for sources for things to, again, repudiate these pop history lies about the history of America and the foundation of it, we'll say that Finn Paul went above and beyond and picked 50, 70, 80 books, sources that he cited. And again, he was fair, he was thorough, he was swift, and I just kept finding myself like pausing and being like, man, I'm glad that he took the time to do this. Because really this is a call to repentance for anybody who has put narrative above fact in historical discussions and examinations of America and her founding and everything that's happened on this continent for the last 500 plus years. This was an incredible book. I am so glad that somebody on Twitter recommended it. I can't remember who. I bookmarked it. I eventually bought a paperback, and here we are, without any reservations. Not that I'm all that hyped on giving books a star rating anymore, but this is top tier. Even among the best books of the year that I've read, this is at the top of the list. I encourage everybody to read it. I will be crowing about it for years to come. This is the breath of fresh air that we have been looking for. Those of us who've read broadly, read widely, and read deeply about the many facets of history that converge to create the United States of America, and are still reading, and are still learning, and still finding things that we love about it, and the figures who made it all happen. This is the relief that we've been looking for in the face of just brazen dishonesty by powerful entities that are hell-bent on forcing us to agree to a lie about who we are as a nation and how we came to be this way. I love this book. I really think you guys should check it out. No content warnings other than when he's talking about historical instances of violence and such, but he doesn't get into excessive detail about it. Go read it. Drive safe. See you out there.